Hello, this is Miles Madden, and this is my presentation for Global Food Perspectives. My topic today is soil as a carbon storehouse. So what piqued my interest was actually earlier in the semester, one of the videos highlighted that farmers are turning to carbon storage and that they have the ability to actually become one of the few industries to be carbon negative. So let's go ahead and dive into the subject. So carbon farming is regenerative agriculture. Soil is an abundant source of nutrients and minerals as one of our most valued resources. With active alternative practices, we can put carbon back into the ground that will help give back nutrients to our crops and food. Now, the chart actually highlights rather well just how that process works. So we draw up from the ground coal and we burn it, and then it turns into CO2 in the atmosphere, and then the trees and the plants and the vegetation actually incorporate it. And what they do is the stalks are actually made out of carbon, and whatever is excess is actually put back into the soil as nutrients. Now, some methods of carbon farming actually involve something called biochar. So biochar is actually a carbon-based charcoal from burnt plants and vegetation that has been subjected to anoxic environments. So primarily you would notice that it's there after forest fires as evidence of that. And then another method of carbon farming is no-till farming. So essentially removing any form of plowing or tilling from your farming technique, planting through leftovers of the preceding plants and weeds. This can be considered another form of compost layering, which is our last method of carbon farming. Compost layer has huge impacts on converting a farm to carbon farm. If one adds a cover of about 1.5 centimeters of compost to grazed land, the soil water holding capacity would increase to 26,000 liters per capacity. Per 10,000 square meters. This can increase the feed in the area by up to 70% and increase the amount of carbon intake by the soil by a minimum of 2,000 pounds per 10,000 per year, which is crazy. Done properly, the compost layer would not need to be reapplied for up to 30 years. Now, approximately 75% of terrestrial carbon is in our soil. Plants provide a method of removing carbon from the atmosphere through photosynthesis, storing it in their roots and in their tissue. We could store upwards of 11 gigatons of CO2 every year. What has caused the loss of healthy soil? Conventional farming practices like clear cutting, tilling, and overgrazing has led to a loss of healthy soil. With these practices, we reduce the amount of carbon storage that can take place in our soil. Traditional landscaping even plays a part in carbon loss, as different chemical fertilizers and pesticides kill the needed soil biology. Now, some of the pros of carbon farming are carbon farming collects the carbon out of the air and stores it in our soil, bringing nutrients to the soil. The process helps curb the effects of global warming. The benefits do include improvement of soil quality with water retention, nutrients, resulting in more productivity of plants. Now, some of the cons of carbon farming are it's a relatively new practice that could lack the proper adoption to take effect, and without both reducing our carbon emission and increasing our carbon farming, we may not see an impact in global warming. And it can take 25 to 100 years for the soil to reach a new carbon equilibrium, reducing the yield in the meantime of the plants and vegetation. Now, the ethical type that I've looked at this topic um, through the lens of is utilitarianism, that states if the positive outweighs the negative, then the greatest good is achieved. With this in mind, it is our responsibility to ensure that we do all that we can to help curb or even reverse the effects of climate change.